Welcome to the Mike Miller Show.
Happy Wednesday, America. Happy Wednesday, Jessica. Good day today. Same old in some areas and some new stuff. At the bottom of the hour, a friend of mine, best-selling author Stephen England will be on, author of the Shadow Warriors series. Stephen's one of those interesting fellows that I like to talk to every now and again. He has sometimes a bit of a different take on things. But so we'll have Stephen on at the bottom of the hour. Jessica, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How you?
I'm good. I'm looking at this political cartoon that kind of encapsulates what's going on in the media. I put this on Facebook a little bit ago, but it's from Bronco. I don't even know his or her first name. My fave is Michael Ramirez by far, but it's actually pretty funny. So you have this van. It says Washington Post reporters on it. You got like 20 of them, right? Because they supposedly have a team of 20 people on Trump looking at him. By the way, somebody on Fox last night, I kind of had a mini relapse and watched it for just a few minutes. But was it? No. Was it on Special Report? Because I do make exception for the 5 in Special Report. But anyway, somebody was asking, what's his face? Bob Woodward, still with the Washington Post. Bob Woodward of Woodward and Bernstein fame, or Watergate and the whole bit. But anyway, asking him if they have 20 reporters on Hillary, right? And his response was, he didn't say no, but the answer was no. It's not how many. It's seeking the truth is kind of what he said, which is completely ridiculous because they're not doing that. So anyway, this political cartoon is about that. So you have this van, you have all these people gathered around what is obviously a molehill, right? And it has Trump written on it. It's real little. They're all bent down. They have magnifying glasses and they're looking at it. Mm-hmm. But in the background are 3 mountains covered in snow. One of them says Hillary Benghazi scandal. The other one says Clinton Foundation scandal. And the one in the middle says Hillary Clinton email scandal. I thought that was pretty good.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. What's the matter with your dog?
I don't know. Hold on. I'm going to mute. You talk.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to talk about another political cartoon. Do you guys ever see something that well, it's not a political cartoon. This was just absolutely hilarious. And do you ever see something or hear something that you laugh so hard that you think, I may not be able to recover from this? I mean, I may never be normal again. I may just go off onto whatever that plane is and just not be able to return. But so yeah, that happened. So I'm just kind of looking around last night, and there's a picture of Hillary. It's really her. I mean, it's not a cartoon or whatever. And she, I don't know what she was doing, but she's apparently outside. I don't know if it make any difference, but she has her arms outstretched, her head kind of slightly tilted back, her eyes closed. She's kind of smiling, but probably talking at the same time. It looks like she's singing, okay? Hence, the words written across the image, and you have to kind of think of this in terms of singing it, but the hills are alive with the sound of, and I'm going to say it, bullshit. And I just saw it, and you just picture her singing this, and I lost it. I mean, I just could not almost recover. So I threw that up on Facebook, and there's like 100 people on there laughing with me. But yeah, so that's going on. I love stuff like that.
I love the both Hillarines. They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah. So speaking of Trump, let's get back to Trump for a minute. An announcement this afternoon. Donald Trump has followed through on a campaign promise and unveiled a list of 11 potential Supreme Court justices from whom he would presumably choose to replace A. Scalia if that seat on the bench is not filled before the election. Did you see that?
I did not see that. What's his list?
Well, see, like I don't know anybody on the list, and I suspect that not a lot of other people do either. I mean, you have Steve Colleton of Iowa, Allison Eade of Colorado, Raymond Grunder, Missouri, Thomas Hardiman of Pennsylvania, nobody knows who any of these people are unless you know these people. Raymond Kethledge of Michigan, Joe Larson of Michigan, Thomas Lee of Utah, William Pryor. Oh, William Pryor, is that the of Alabama, David Strauss of Minnesota, Diane Sykes of Wisconsin, and Don Willett of Texas. The main point is that he did it. And I, for one, were I an advisor to the Donald, I kind of question the wisdom of doing that. What do you think about that? Just releasing a list of a bunch of names for the press to dig into.
I don't know. I mean, because right at this point, I mean, it's not gonna happen. So maybe just releasing the list is also like they can look into these people and then, I don't know. I actually don't know. And then
I mean, I know why he did it, right? To try to gain some street cred with conservatives to say, see, I told you I'm going to, and this is him. This is a quote previously, that the list would, quote, include judges that everybody respects, likes, and totally admires, and great conservative judges, great intellects, the people that you want. Okay, I get all that. I get why he did it, right? Because you have all these people out there like me and others suggesting Donald Trump is pretending to be somewhat of a conservative because that's the role he thinks he must play in order to win the nomination. And so far, it's been working swimmingly for him. So he's trying to get more people to come over to say, okay, fine, look at this list, and well, wow, But like I'm thinking. Think about just a nominee or several nominees, not 10 or however many of these people are. What I say, 11. The vetting process that goes on there, and then when you have the confirmation hearings and the vetting that goes on. I mean, look at what happened to Clarence Thomas as an example. Mm-hmm. To me, this is just kind of like, have you ever stood at the end of a pier and you have kind of swarming little fish and you throw like breadcrumbs or whatever in the water and then they all race to get to it? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so to me, this is kind of that. I mean, you can't tell me that every one of these people has been thoroughly vetted to the extent that the Washington Times or the Washington Post or the New York Times or the like is not going to find one or more of these people and find stuff about them. To me, I don't see anything to gain doing this. And again, that's just me. I get why he did it, but I wouldn't have done it.
Probably not, but it could also be that he wants to put he does put the list out there. They go through some of the process and he's like, oh, they'll do this for me, basically, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And, so in his mind, he's appeasing the people that he said he was going to appease. And also, if they find something really crazy about somebody, they'll be like, okay, he's like, okay, well, that person's out, but,
Okay, but see, then there you go. Because then, okay, if he couldn't find, I'm just being devil's advocate here, right? So then they say, well, if he puts this guy's name out there, he said only the best and people that everybody respects, and then you find out like one of these people is a pedophile. I'm being facetious to the extreme to make the point. Mm-hmm. And then like the New York Times finds it. So then the obvious question is, well, like then what other decisions will he make that he told us were going to be the best and whatever, and he missed it. I just don't see any upside to him. I get why he did it. I just think there's more of a potential downside possibly than an upside.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I just don't know how serious the list is either. So I don't know.
Yeah, and how thoroughly vetted could it have been? And again, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I just write and talk, and so that's kind of the deal. Okay. Speaking of Trump, have you seen this? Have you seen this story? This started last week about this butler that used to work for him.
I heard something about.
Calling,
Yeah.
calling for Obama to be executed.
Whoa. Yeah. I think I remember hearing something crazy like that, but I didn't know it was a real story.
Oh, it's a real story. Yeah, this
Wow.
is not the Onion stuff. I mean, it almost could be, but this guy, I think, like 17 years. His name's Anthony Senecal. Not doesn't work for Trump anymore, but I put a post up about this on IJR yesterday, and on where is it? And I linked to it. May 11th on his Facebook page, he posts the following quote: "To all my friends on Facebook, just a short note to you on our pus-headed president." And he's one of those guys. First of all, I hate it when people, whatever the punctuation mark is, either a period or exclamation points. You know, people like they leave spaces and then they do them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, why do you do that? He uses four of them throughout. Well, he uses five of them once, but I don't understand why people do that. But anyway, that's just the editor in me. But to all, to all my friends on Facebook, just a short note to you on our pus-headed president. This character, who I refer to as Zero, and then he puts an actual zero in parentheses, should have been taken out by our military and shot as an enemy agent in his first term, space, five
Wow.
exclamation points. Instead, he still remains in office doing everything he can to gut the America we know and love, space, five more exclamation points. So he put that up on Facebook May 11th, right? May 12th, he got a call from the Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't very happy with him.
I wonder why. Like.
Yeah, so they were like wanting to know, dude, like, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then after that, so the next day after, this is like 3 days in a row. I think maybe the 11th was a Wednesday, I'm going to guess. He on Wednesday he does this. Thursday he gets the call from the Secret Service. And then Friday he talks to the West Virginia newspaper. Let me ask you, like, what do you think the over and under is? Do you think he changed his mind about Obama should be executed?
I mean, privately, probably not, but he
What
might
about
have
publicly?
back.
Just take a
Yeah,
shot.
I think he probably backtracked a little bit.
Yeah, no.
Oh, really?
No. He said, so he tells this newspaper, this West Virginia newspaper, this is the Martinsville Journal or something. He says, quote, "I think they, the Secret Service, wanted to make sure I wasn't going to go there with a rifle. I told them it was too far to drive. I lived in Washington and I hated it. I'm glad I got the hell out of there." Okay, so he tells them that. But he also says, I think it should have been, this is him talking to the newspaper, I think it should have been done by the military in the first term. They still have a chance to do it.
Oh my God.
Not repentant about this thing.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I mean, he's
more
sticking
power
to
to
his
him.
guns, right? So he says, but he did say, he says the big thing I kept reiterating was that it had nothing to do with Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump and I have never discussed Obama. These are my own thoughts. And then the Trump campaign on the Donald's official Facebook page put up a statement, which they should have. Anthony Senecal worked within the large staff at Mar-a-Lago from May 5th, 1994 through May 15th, 2009 until he was terminated. He has not been employed by Mar-a-Lago since then, approximately 7 years ago. His statements regarding President Obama and his family are totally disavowed by Donald J. Trump and the Trump Organization. They are disgusting. Mr. Senecal is obviously a very troubled man. So, yeah, but I mean, that guy has conviction, you know?
Yeah. I mean, just like, he sounds like the crazy people, like that are like have the conviction of, that they were abducted and probed and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the alien thing.
Mm.
Do you ever wonder why, like, it's never like an MIT professor? It's
Yeah.
right. It's always somebody that lives in a trailer next to a swamp in Louisiana or something.
Yes, or someone who is in the woods drinking.
Yeah, I want them to, like a Harvard MBA or something, or law student. They seem to go only for the less than brilliant folks among us. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Now you don't buy into the whole. What do you think about? Do you think UFOs have visited us? Do aliens have visited us?
I don't know if they have visited us, but I feel like this universe, there's got to be some other life somewhere.
It would seem to be a big old waste if there wasn't, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I believe that as well. But I'm, I just like as a kid, I was just fascinated with that stuff. But man, I don't know. Now, Hillary and Bill, like, I'm not going to get to half of the stuff I wanted to get to because this is part of what's fun about when you and I do this because we just go off on these tangents. Um, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have been really into the whole Area 51 thing and UFO, supposed information that the government secretly has. Have you seen that in the past?
That Hillary and Bill have been into that? I
Oh,
mean, they,
absolutely. Hillary's even said on the
yeah.
campaign trail, this is true, that if she becomes president, she's going to release all of the classified information that the government has.
On Area 51.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, I remember hearing kind of some of that stuff like when Bill Clinton was president, but I didn't hear about Hillary recently. No.
They're like into it. I mean, they really are not real far from here. I would say, relatively speaking, 2.5 hours is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio.
Hmm.
The rumor has been for decades that the whole saucer crash thing in Roswell, that the wreckage was taken to Wright-Patterson in Ohio, and there's a secret hangar and stuff over there that kind of stuff is just to me it's kind of crazy, but I just don't think so. But yeah, Bill and Hillary are way into that. Um, let's shift gears a little bit. I have a clip I want to make sure that we work in. I just put this up as just as kind of a whim. One of my favorite Democrats is Nancy Pelosi, right?
Oh, she's one of my favorites ones as well.
Yeah, because like in the past, I've talked about like my Democrat all-star team.
Yes.
She's like a starting point guard. You have Nancy Pelosi on there. You have Harry Reid. You have probably Chuck Schumer, Debbie Wasserman Schultz for sure, and who would my fifth person be? I don't know right now. But anyway, Nancy Pelosi, poor old Nancy Pelosi, Botox riddled Nancy Pelosi. She used to be one of my favorite targets, to write about and talk about, and always got a lot of good, views, reads, shares, and stuff from her. Haven't talked about her a lot recently. I mean, she's not really been in the news, right? She's a minority leader now, but so I saw this story yesterday. She was questioned about the Donald, and so I thought, do people still even care? I mean, we're in the middle of a presidential campaign, and do people even care what Botox Dan has to say? So on a whim, I put this thing about Independent Journal, and it's got like 125,000 views. And so I'm thinking people do still care what Nancy Pelosi has to say.
I mean, she's fascinating to listen to.
I know. So, and you have to see the video because it's just hilarious. But my headline is the moment all Republicans, this is snarky, and I know that surprises you, but the moment all Republicans have been waiting for, ... Nancy Pelosi drops her take on Trump's presidential bid. So Nancy Pelosi was asked about Donald Trump. We're going to play this thing. Jessica, I think there's a little, when I clip this, the image is there, but I think there's maybe a couple second delay or something at the beginning before they actually start talking. But she was interviewed at the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. I don't have any idea what that is, by CNN's Dana Bash, and asked about Trump. Listen to what she says, and it's hard to make out at the very beginning, but then she goes off on this kind of bizarre, random thing about a shrunken presidency and how that allows Donald Trump to be what Donald Trump is. Let's listen.
Trump said earlier this year that he's always had a good relationship with Nancy Pelosi.
Did he say that?
He did. Anything you want to add to that?
I also read in the paper, I read or see or something that he's contributed to me, which is not even true, but he hasn't said it.
But do you know, how well do you know him? Can you give us some backstory?
I think I met him once, yes. I mean, I know I met him once. I met him once in his office. We went there to talk about things years ago, and he was a gentleman and lovely, and all of a sudden, but it's interesting, if you try to do what they did, I mean, here's how I see it. Shrink the presidency, discredit even the birthright of the president to be president. Shrink his credentials academically in every way. Have a meeting the day you're elected to the majority to say the most important thing we can do is to make sure he doesn't succeed. If you kind of shrink the presidency, then a lot more people would be qualified to run for it, right? And if you live in a world of reality TV, shrunken president, reality TV, there you are. But I have I have great faith in the American people. I think that they will demand that this debate, okay, we've had our fun, now let's get serious.
You know, she is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Shrunken presidency. And of course, what she's, what she's referring to is, first of all, the dopey birth certificate thing, and then this notion, and of course Rush Limbaugh was skewered by the left, by the mainstream media as well, which kind of goes hand in hand, but for saying that they hope Obama fails, and of course they did. Mitch McConnell is a minority leader said that when he was elected. And of course you do. I mean, what you're saying is you don't hope that this man as a human being fails, that this person fails because he's a black president. You're saying that I disagree with and disavow basically everything that this guy stands for, his policies, his ideology, and the like. And as a result, hell yes, I want him to fail. I want all that stuff to fail. Of course, they took that and ran with it. So that's what she's talking. She's still talking about it. And I just think she is just hilarious. At the beginning, did he? She's sitting there. She looks you saw the video, right?
Yeah, she just looks around.
It looks
she's like,
bizarre,
did he say
doesn't
that?
she?
And then you could tell she's kind of looking for a statement. Did he say that to me? Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you tell your grandma, and it's like, oh, we're going to do this on Tuesday. Remember we talked about it. What? Did we? Like, yeah. She's just the gift that keeps on giving, and I hadn't done anything with her for a long time, so I was pretty happy about that. Speaking of Democrats, Ed Rendell, I think he was Philadelphia mayor, I know. He is of late the former Pennsylvania governor. He predicts, he's huge Hillary supporter, predicts that she's going to win. And one of the primary reasons, one of the factions that's going to vote for her, that's going to carry her over the top, according to Ed. What?
Ugly women.
Ugly. Wow, that's a great thing to say.
Yeah, I put that up this morning. Hillary Clinton really, I put really in all caps, won't like the reason former Democratic Party bigwig thinks she'll beat Trump. So there's this article in where's the article? Washington Post, I believe. Yeah, it's in the Washington Post. I linked to it in the, by the way, you guys, injo.com works. We have several URLs that will get you there, but injo.com is Independent Journal Review, where you can find this kind of stuff. Or you can go to my Facebook page, those of you who I know are listening who do that, and I post every post, if you will, and link to it there. But so this was a Washington Post article that quoted several folk about what they think is going to happen in November. I was not called, by the way. And they are talking about, Ed was talking about this New York Times hit piece that we talked about on Monday, right? It came out over the weekend. They interviewed in the neighborhood of 50 women who said various things that Trump had done to them or said to them that, misogynistic and stuff. That hit over the weekend. So this is in reference to that. So, yeah, Ed Rendell says no. He says, quote, and he's talking about if Trump's going to do okay in Pennsylvania, because that would be, if Trump could win Pennsylvania, of course, he'd have to also win, by most estimations, Florida and Ohio, and then carry the traditional red states. But anyway, so Ed's talking about Pennsylvania, whether or not Trump will do there well. So he says, quote, will he have some appeal to working class Dems in Levittown or Bristol? Sure. Let me see. He goes, for every one, though, he'll lose 1.5 to Republican women. Trump's comments like, quote, you can't be a 10 if you're flat-chested. That comes from the New York Times article. That'll come back to haunt him. This is still Ed talking. There are probably more ugly women in America than attractive women. People take that stuff seriously.
All right.
Yeah, so ugly women are pissed off at Donald Trump.
Of course.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, they would just say that. Like that goes along with all women are the
Yeah,
whole
well,
thing.
yeah. I think Ed got off message a little bit there. I'm not
Just
sure.
a little
that
bit,
was-
slightly, a little, kind of.
So do you think, what about his assertion here? There are probably more ugly women in America than attractive women. Do you think that's probably true? What if you have like 3 categories? Okay, you have 3 categories. You have like ugly, and it's just not women. I mean, it's people generally. You have like ugly people, attractive people, and you have people in the middle that are kind of neither. I mean, which group is the largest?
I feel like I think the majority is probably average. If we're gonna go,
Probably why they call it average, huh?
yeah, exactly. Because I feel like a lot of like really beautiful people are just, as far as physically, are beautiful because they're not common. I don't know.
Yeah. See, like I'm not sure how he made the connection, how he connected the dots between his quote. This is the entire quote from him in the article. He doesn't say anything else because they interviewed, several people. But he doesn't. The only thing he references, again, quote, you can't be a 10. This is, again, he's referencing Donald's quote, supposed quote from the New York Times article. Trump saying again, quote, you can't be a 10 if you're flat-chested. Now, how does Rendell connect the dots to being ugly? I don't think flat-chested is being ugly.
Yeah, that's true too. I don't understand that either. I don't connect that dot.
Yeah. When I was a young lad, how do I put this? Do you remember? You don't remember because you weren't born. But you heard of Twiggy?
Yeah, I know who Twiggy was.
Twiggy was like the first waif, if you will. That was like mega model or whatever, right?
Supermodel. Yeah, she was like the first supermodel.
Yeah, that was in. And it still is on the runways, right? Being kind of flat-chested and
Having
stuff.
that pixie look, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of liked that look. I just I should probably stop talking about that right now, but you know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
So yeah, because sometimes too much is too much. But again, see, like right there, that was too much. I didn't need to say that. So
Well,
I
there we
don't know.
go. That's what he said.
Nobody ever got mad at me for keeping my mouth shut.
That's probably true.
Other side of the coin. Speaking of Democrats, there's some violence going on. If I read this to you, what are we under 2 minutes? Aren't we?
Yes, we are.
All right. This is New York Times. Thrown chairs, leaked cell phone numbers, death threats spewed across the internet. That sounds like that would be something to do with a Trump rally, doesn't it?
Well, if I didn't know better, but yes.
These are, these are Bernie Sanders fans pissed off at the other side.
Yeah,
Did you see that?
I did see that. I was like, what? Yeah, that seems like a legitimate response.
They were. This is in Nevada, right? Hillary won the primary, but just as I'm multitasking here. I'm looking at stuff. Just as Ted Cruz ran around and grabbed delegates after the fact based on the rules, Bernie's fans went out there and attempted to do that. Like 60 of them were denied. Were denied credentials. And you have people, they're threatening me, my grandkids, and the whole bit. So again, that just kind of, this is crazy town. Speaking of crazy town, we're already done for the first half hour. You guys come back. This is The Mike Miller Show, and we will be joined by best-selling author Stephen England. Don't go away.
Will I be a good man? Will I be true to myself?
Doug, I never thought I could go back to school, but when it's this easy, it fits.
I'm right there with you, Jackie, taking classes, watching lectures in the living room on the iPad. It's not hard.
I can be a mom, make dinner, get my classwork done, and not miss a moment with my family. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Hey, it's Jackie Velasquez, and if Doug and I can do this, you can do this too. Higher education with Liberty University Online.
Find out more about completing your college degree at the world's largest Christian university, Liberty University. Get all the details right now. Grab your cell and dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword Liberty University.
Training champions for Christ since 1971, Liberty University Online. Find out more about learning online. Dial pound 250, then say the keyword Liberty University.
Liberty University Online with hundreds of degree programs to choose from. Call now, pound 250. Say the keyword Liberty University.
That's pound 250. Say keyword Liberty University.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
And I'll be a good man without you. Without you. Without
you. Welcome back. Second half hour. Can't believe the first half hour is in the archives already. Anyway, this is the Mike Miller Show, and we are joined, as promised, by best-selling author, a good guy all around, friend of mine, used to be on the old show, Stephen England. Stephen, how are we doing today, brother?
Good to be here, Mike.
Good to have you back. Haven't talked to you for a while. I read some of your stuff.
A little bit.
Yeah, I read some of your stuff on Facebook, and we're going to talk about your series. I think this is fascinating, but I want to just kind of catch up with you on stuff first, right?
Yes.
I will say two words, and I would like you to explain those two words to me, and then explain about the follower of those two words, the followers, and those two words are Donald Trump. What the hell? I mean, would you have if I would have told you, even a week after he announced his candidacy last June, that fast forward 11 months, this guy is the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party? I mean, what would you have thought?
I think we're in the twilight zone, is my opinion. It's yeah, I don't know. I don't know just how to explain it other than I think what I've felt for a number of years, and that is the conservative movement was never quite as well grounded in their principles as we might have liked to have believed. And he found that he could capitalize on that. And the reality now is that we're looking at a situation where if the GOP establishment that everyone claims to hate and that I am now a member of, unbeknownst to me, if the GOP establishment is as evil as everyone has made them out, conservatives have basically just told them that you don't really need to even pretend to placate us. You can run whoever you want, and as long as he talks tough and tosses some red meat your way, there are no actual policies upon which he has to be any kind of conservative. I mean, if the GOP establishment is as liberal and as conniving as they've been painted over the years, and I'm not entirely sure they are, but let's just, for the sake of argument, assume they are. They've just been given the biggest Christmas gift you could ever imagine.
What did you have thought? Okay, let's go back pre-midterms, 2014, the lead up, right? The dissatisfaction with everything to do with D.C., and particularly the Democrats, Barack Obama. And the Democratic Party got its ass handed to them in the 2014 midterms. And, I said at the time, and I still believe it, that it wasn't so much that the Republican Party won as much as it was the Democratic Party lost, right? They got their asses handed to them. It was there. Look, we're ticked off. Here it is, you guys, the country saying to the Republicans. So then Boehner, comes out and talks all tough like he always did. And then by January, with the multiple cave-ins, you'd have thought that the Republicans had their asses handed to them. Okay, so now you use the C word. The conservative movement is really ticked off even more at Boehner and McConnell and the like.
Despite the fact that Boehner just won his lawsuit, but that's not received a lot of press.
That's true. But again, so given that scenario, and I think I painted the picture accurately, if you had to continue with the image, wouldn't you have guessed that because conservatives are so ticked off at Boehner and McConnell and the like for folding up like a cheap tent every time Obama tells them to, wouldn't you have guessed, if you had to guess, that they would have gravitated around a true conservative and to kind of quote the old what's his name, Peter Finch from Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Yet they go to this guy who, in my humble opinion, is playing a role, has played a role, and has been unmasked multiple times, pretending to be somewhat of a conservative. See, that's the part that I'm just flabbergasted by still. Why did they not gravitate to a true conservative?
That's where I'm at. But I think it was largely a celebrity candidacy, and people gravitated to someone who was telling them what they wanted to hear. And by the time that personality cult gets rolling, there's no stopping it. Yeah. I mean, his followers are so invested in him now. They're explaining to me why. Yes, Roger Stone was out today or yesterday, saying that if Trump gets to become president, he should pull CNN's FCC license. Well, there's a problem there because CNN doesn't have an FCC license, but that doesn't matter. Trump will pull whatever it is and get them off air, and Trump supporters are backing that.
They say anything, do anything.
As he stated a few months ago, and I believed him at the time when he said it, I still believe it true to this day. He could shoot a man on Fifth Avenue and not lose any followers.
I used to joke, and I've said it multiple times on air through the years, but Barack Obama could have chased down W on his ranch in Crawford and set him on fire, and he'd experience a 10-point increase in popularity among the Obama bots. I mean, that's how Trump is, and I get those people, and I have offended lots of them. And let me throw this. Well,
you've offended people, Mike. That seems hard.
I know. I know, right? Because I'm such a very tactful individual, but I get hashtag Trump fan. I get that kind of bowling shirt mentality thing. I get that. I mean, but let's be fair. Yes. I mean, both parties have those people, right? You're like Obama phone lady and all those people. I mean, I get that. What I don't get, and I've said this before as well, I don't get, and this was long before Trump had it anywhere near sewed up. I mean, didn't get Ann Coulter, Laura Ingraham. Sean Hannity is, I can't even stand to see his face, let alone listen to him. To an extent, Rush Limbaugh, although he, at heart.
A friend of mine wrote up marriage vows between Sean Hannity and Donald Trump, so there you go.
Well, there you go. I mean, and you've seen all of the memes and the images where he's kind of the puppet, sitting on, or the whatever you call, like the Charlie McCarthy, Edgar Bergen, sitting on Trump's lap. I don't get those people. I mean, I get now rallying around the nominee and coming together. I get all that thing, whether people are going to do it or not. I don't get the cheerleading for this guy when it was still viable that Ted Cruz, as the example, still had a potential path to the nomination. This idol worship of Donald Trump among people who should know better, that is the phenomenon that surprises me.
Well, I think for a lot of those people you've named, it did become a centralized focus around one issue, that issue being immigration, and really a focus on that to the exclusion of all else. Now, again, we come back to why wouldn't they have preferred, say, a Ted Cruz? I preferred Rubio, but let's go with Cruz because people considered him tough on the border too.
Right.
And why didn't he gravitate toward that? I think it comes down to rhetoric. But really, I think that had become such a laser focus for so many people that it really did get to the place where it was to the exclusion of all else and to the exclude. I mean, there you had Ann Coulter early on in the campaign saying that Trump could perform abortions in the White House and if he wanted, and she wouldn't care as long as he closed the border. And people thought she was joking. I wasn't quite so sure, and I'm still not sure to this day.
No, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, from the primary overriding story, if you will, talking point from his announcement was the wall, and it has been ever since, hasn't it?
It has. It has, and that's very much appealed to a certain wing of the party. Of course, now there's elements of it that are characterizing themselves as the alt-right, and they look very much like the people who were infiltrating Tea parties about 6 or 7 years ago. But apparently they are now among us and one of us. Yeah. And that really gets into a place that I was at with this new book. Because I started writing this, Embrace the Fire, back in late 2013. Really looking at the European right. Because I was seeing all these posts from conservatives sharing memes and sharing posts from right-wing groups in Europe. Mm-hmm. And there seemed to be this premise of, oh, this is wonderful. They're the Tea Party with quaint accents. This is an amazing thing.
So back up a second, okay? Because I know some people listening have seen your stuff. Just kind of give an overview, the whole concept of the Shadow Warriors series, and then let's get into Embrace the Fire.
Yes. Shadow Warriors series really is my look through the lens of a fictional thriller series at the war on terrorism, and as seen through the eyes of a CIA officer fighting that war, named Harry Nichols. Actually, by the time of Embrace the Fire, he's a former CIA officer. But it's really the story of his struggles with the war and really with himself, because you know, we've all seen the books, we've all read thriller novels, and they're very popular. There's a lot of really good ones out there. But it's almost a trope of the genre. The hero always survives. I mean, if the hero doesn't survive, the series is over, and who wants the series to end? Certainly not the author. But this unique, somewhat unique take that I've put on that with the Shadow Warrior series is to take a character who has survived all these near-death experiences, and then he has to deal with survivor's guilt. And that's a very powerful thing in the story, because you have a man who has survived when he should have died. Mm-hmm. And he knows he should have died, and he doesn't know why he lived when, in his opinion, better people than he did not. And that very much is forming a great deal of his emotional state as you come in to Embrace the Fire, which follows the previous book in which a terrorist attack took place in the United States. I won't give any spoilers for those who like to go out and read it. But
that was Day of Reckoning. Correct?
That was Day of Reckoning. And there was a very devastating terrorist attack on the U.S. It was not completely successful, but it was not a complete failure either. And he finds himself in the UK on his own, very much having gone rogue to a certain extent, hunting down the man responsible for that terrorist attack. before, hopefully, he can launch another one, as he's preparing to do there in the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basic premise of Embrace the Fire, is this jihadist who was released from Guantanamo Bay. Now, how familiar does that sound?
Yeah, that is so far-fetched. How could you possibly come up with something like a terrorist being released? Oh, wait, never mind.
It takes a wild imagination.
Excuse me. I am, by the way, you guys, I am on the website, Stephen's website, not Facebook page, but website, Stephen Writes, and it's STEPHEN Writes.com. You got to go there and check out the books. But I'm just reading some stuff. I love this line. He who seeks vengeance must dig two graves, one for his enemy and one for himself. I like that.
It's not original. It's an old proverb. There's any number of sources as to who originated it. But the key that I put in a piece of promo art that'll be going up here in the next few days, this time, two graves won't be nearly enough. Because this is going to turn into quite a story as it unfolds with his hunt for this man. And his quest for his own personal vengeance, and then to stop this man before he can launch another attack.
This is so current, too. I mean, a lot of, Clancy stuff and whatever, it was like stuff that could happen. But so, again, I'm reading here. In the Middle East, refugees fleeing dictatorship and terrorism pour across the borders into Europe, destabilizing countries already in the throes of economic crisis. But not all who seek refuge share the same reasons for doing so. In the UK, the nationalist far right gathers strength, fueled by a government unable or unwilling to protect its own. I mean, is Europe ever going to wake up? I mean, we have this, and I'm not passing judgment on this guy. I don't know who he is. The new Muslim Khan is his last name, the new Muslim mayor of Londonistan. Is Europe going to wake up?
Well, and if they wake up, will it be any improvement? And that's really the story I focus on in the book, because not only do you have the jihadist force there present in the UK, but you also have the forces of the far right. And really, what I paint in Embrace the Fire is a pretty sweeping spectrum, from the jihadists to Muslim families that are just trying to live their lives and just don't want any parts of it, to young men who are becoming radicalized, to Muslims who are taking a stand and fighting against the jihadists, and in one case giving their life in that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then sweeping over to the side of the nationalists far right, because you have people, and I portray them in the story, who have very legitimate grievances. And they feel like their backs are against the wall. There are attacks. The government isn't helping them. And they're basically lashing out, trying to seek what results they can find. And there are, in human history, generally people waiting to take advantage of that. And there are in Embrace the Fire. And so you really have the full spectrum there, from the jihadists to the nationalists to the British government officials who are portrayed in the book in their public speaking pretty much as you would expect British officials. All this unrest, it has nothing to do with any religion. There's a scene in the book that really jumped out at me in editing, and the book is now getting ready to be released here in the early next month. But there was a scene that jumped out at me in editing where you have the UK Home Secretary, Kathleen Napier, delivering an address to the United Kingdom in the wake of a terrorist attack, a stabbing that actually strikes a gay nightclub in London. And she's giving the whole rote, Islam is a religion of peace. She reads a verse from the Quran that talks about the taking of a human life. But you're not, as the reader, you're not there in the room with her. You're watching her on television.
Mm-hmm.
And you're watching her address stretches over two scenes. First, you view her address through the eyes of a UK publisher who's very right-wing. He's very much a mover and shaker in some of the behind-the-scenes action that's going on in the book. And so he's watching her, and with as you would expect, a right-wing analysis of her words and just a contempt for her. And then the scene shifts, and you're watching her on TV with the main jihadist leader, and a young man, a teenager, who has been radicalized. And they're watching her address and giving their take on it. And it's fascinating to watch that type of address we've seen so many times from leaders. We understand why it's given. And there are, in the book, Muslims who believe what Kathleen Napier says exactly as she said it, and they're willing to die for that belief.
So you
But there's still the reality that, okay, here's how a jihadist is seeing what she says. And then the nationalist element as well.
Right. Okay, so you have, I suppose it sounds a bit oxymoronic, but you have what I would call a realistic imagination. But
Pretty much.
But in addition, no, and I say that as a compliment. But in addition to that, or in concert with that, how do you research? What do you do when you write something like this?
I read as much as I can, and I talk to people. That's pretty much my research.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much my research approach. And I've been fortunate with good sources, with friends in the UK, and there's so much information out there on, take for example the UK nationalist movement, and that's where I went a number of years ago when I started writing this. I realized, hey, we're looking at this like it's the Tea Party with quaint accents. But if you dig into the manifestos, as they call them, we would call them a party platform. The election manifestos of the British National Party, the BNP, it is a crazed mishmash of very conservative ideas, restoring gun rights, some things that you and I would just stand up and applaud. And the next minute, you know, they're turning around and basically.
Why do you think? My eyes were really open. Mark Stein is one of my favorite people on the planet. Okay, America Alone. I'm sure you've read that book. When I first read that book years back, that just really opened my eyes. And of course, what this is about, for those of you who have not read it, is the Islamization of Europe. And how do you think why has that happened? Why has it been allowed to happen to the extent that we now find Europe?
Well, I think it's happened over decades of immigration, and now you have the refugee crisis, of course. I don't know. I think, of course, you realize in Europe, you have both left and right are not limited government, free market, that sort of thing. They are very, as I heard someone say years ago, the limited government seat at the table was taken away from Europe years ago, if it was ever there to begin with, considering we're talking about former monarchies. But I think in many cases, in the wake of World War II, there was very much a fear in some sectors of the right wing, and not entirely without reason. But that led to a full-fledged reaction against that has definitely led to problems in the region. And I don't downplay those in the books. I mean, I don't pretend the problems aren't there. It's just a question of what is going to be done to solve it. And ultimately, when someone says they're going to solve it, well, as a character in the book says, no one is interested in any real solutions. They're interested in power. And you have to be very, very cautious of those people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the new book will be out. It's Embrace the Fire. It will be out when?
It'll be out in early June. I'll be announcing a release date on my website this Friday.
Okay, so we have Embrace the Fire. We touched on Day of Reckoning. We don't want to tell folks what actually happens there. Talk a bit about Pandora's Grave.
Pandora's Grave was a very fascinating novel to write. I've finished it. It was published in mid-2011. And it really was the story. It was a story centered around Iran and a bioweapon that was developed by the Iranian government and deployed in Jerusalem, which you can imagine had the potential to cause quite a bit of commotion in the Middle East, particularly in how it was to be employed, which was against, of course, Iran as a Shiite regime. Mm-hmm. And the plot, in loose terms, was to deploy this bioweapon against Sunni Muslims worshipping on the Temple Mount at the Dome of the Rock, the Haram al-Sharif, the compound there, and basically blame it on the Jews. And you can, if you know anything about the Middle East, you know how readily that is to be believed. So it really played into Nichols and his CIA team trying to stop it, with the understanding as the book unfolds that they are compromised from within, actually on multiple levels. And that created a lot of suspense and a lot of tension as everything unfolded throughout the book.
We need to get these things made into movies, man. I mean, this is riveting stuff. I love this stuff.
I try to write in a very cinematic manner, and people seem to. I've heard from a number of people over the years that they were drawn in. They felt like they were there in the action, bullets flying past their heads. I mean, it was. I try to give people a good experience.
My wife is one of those people, and I know you obviously get what I'm about to say, but would much rather read a book than see the movie. She likes movies, right? But just the way you can envelop yourself in a book, and it can look like whatever you want it to look like. I mean, I remember years ago, I was a big trilogy fan, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien.
Oh, yes.
And I rued
favorites of mine.
Yeah, I rued the day that they would ever turn it into a movie, because I told myself there's no way that it can be done the way I see it. Now, fast forward, what has happened with it. It was good. It was passable, but still, books are for you to experience the way you want to experience them, aren't they?
I agree very much.
Yeah. So so this is about to be released. I dare ask anything else that you're working on when this one even hasn't been released yet, but is this series over, or does it continue?
By no means. I actually have started the next book in the series. I can't tell too much about it because it would give away the ending of this book, but I can say just enough to say that the next book will find Nichols in Europe and very much dealing with events that look quite a bit like what we've dealt with recently in Belgium and France.
Fascinating stuff, man. I'm going to have to pretty much kick you out of here because we're getting down to the wire. But tell the folks where to go and buy your stuff and read about your stuff.
You can visit my website, StephenWrites.com, and you can just type my name and Shadow Warriors into Amazon, and all my books are available there.
Definitely recommend checking out Stephen's books, because this stuff is this is not fiction, you guys. This is
it's a little too real.
It's a little too real, unfortunately. Stephen, also unfortunately, we're out of time, man. I got to let you go. Thanks for coming on.
It's been a pleasure, Mike.
We'll have you back, brother.
Yep, good to be here.
Okay, bye-bye. Jessica, how could people? I'm always fascinated by people that can write like that.
Yeah, and those books that like stay with you, the ones that you were saying that have like a very like cinematic presence for yourself, that is I think that's like the goal, but I very few people I've seen been able to do that.
And Clancy was like that, and of course in total fantasy, Tolkien and folks like that, Ray Bradbury and the like. But yeah. Anyway, love me some Stephen England. He's a smart guy, and of course he's also smart because we share political views pretty much. I guess we got to pretty much get out of here as well, right?
Yes, we do.
All right. This is the Mike Miller Show with producer extraordinaire Jessica Jane. We will be back Friday. I have an interview with a guy running for 8th District congressional seat in Missouri. A fascinating fellow, a doctor, and he's going to be on Friday. So join us then. We'll be back Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Join us, please. Thanks for listening.
Say goodbye to the city. I think it's time to get away.